Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Paul Shrater, serial entrepreneur, over a dozen companies and brands in e commerce, third party logistics, fulfillment, contract packaging, in food and beauty, and so many other places. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Paul. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can master multiple businesses like the way you are doing. But before we come to this, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Sure. Yeah, I can dive in if you want. I
Yes.
went to the Wharton school. Actually, I have many friends from India. It's a big school that had a lot of business people coming over from India. And then went into film and television and did that for 9 years as a producer and writer, had offices on the Sony lot, sold a script for $1 million. And then the entrepreneurial part of my brain kicked into gear with an idea that our family had for this new thing called e-commerce back in 2004, and started out just as a small little thing with 4 shelves, 500 square feet, a computer, no employees, and just me. And 3 months later, I shifted careers, and we had a warehouse and 5 employees, and it's continued to grow from there.
Absolutely. But how many, so many companies, how come that happened, that came into being? Uh, did you plan for it or it just happened one thing from
No,
the
so
other?
So what happened was my family was on a trip to New Hampshire in the United States, and to a cabin, and everybody had their favorite, barbecue sauce, salad dressing, cereal. And at the end of the week, everybody said, it's a shame we have to throw this away. We're not going to put it in our suitcase. And wouldn't it be great if you could buy your favorite brands in miniature sizes? And so I said, this new e-commerce thing, people are trusting putting their credit cards online for the first time, because before that, there wasn't really a big e-commerce push, but it was just starting. And I saw that there was going to be a lot of demand to buy things online, but there wasn't a lot of supply yet. And so we could carve out a business that dealt with everything miniature, whether it's travel size toiletries, single serving food items, or other miniature products. And I love businesses, and a lot of, if we get into talking about the other ones I have, they've really been built around things that have changing in society, and capturing a need and an opportunity that exists within a societal shift.
Right, right. So I want to understand, uh, all these businesses is fine, but why shipping fruit cake into space? Have you opened a business there also?
so so that is a fun story. On that website for travel sizes, we didn't even know that NASA, the space agency here in the United States, was ordering products to go up to the space station. Back then it was on the space shuttle, like little packets of like ketchup and mustard and barbecue sauce and other stuff. And one day, apparently, we were out of one of the items, and our customer service person comes to me and says, NASA's buying from us, and we can't give them a substitute because their food lab tests everything, and they had approved this particular brand. So I said, all right, let me talk to them. And I said, stop ordering on our website. We'll help you in our wholesale department. I called that brand. They FedEx overnighted a case of the product to the NASA food lab. And then I started working with the NASA people just personally to help them was fun. And they called me one day and said, hey, we've got a problem. One of our astronauts gets to pick something special, and it's the holidays, and he wants a fruit cake. The problem is we're a government agency, and fruitcakes are preserved with rum, alcohol. We can't have alcohol in it as a government agency. So can you find us a fruitcake that doesn't use rum, but is preserved for 2 years, because at the time it was going up on a Russian supply rocket and they needed to route it and crate it up and everything. So I called every fruitcake manufacturer in the United States. They all use rum. And then I start looking around the world, and I find an abbey of monks in the United Kingdom who for 400 years have been making fruitcake without rum, preserved for 2 years. They send it over to the NASA food lab. It passes, it goes up to space. 2 years later, the astronaut goes up again, and now the monks charge me $65 a fruit cake, and it went up again. So I've shipped fruit cake into space twice.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's quite an achievement, in fact, and I'm sure you must be feeling very proud about it to be able to, work things out. Normally, NASA sends people and things up there, but you were
Yeah.
playing a very strong part into this particular. Now, coming back to the businesses part, means people struggle to grow just one business. How have you been able to manage the growth part for several of these businesses where you are owner, co-owner? Help us understand about the growth part, especially from a startup point of view. Because most if I understand where
They're all
you
startups. Yeah.
started them and then you grew
Yep.
them.
Yeah, so they all really connect to each other. So from that e-commerce business, brands assumed we were manufacturing all those items, but we weren't. And so brands were coming to us, whether it was a barbecue sauce brand or a shampoo brand, and they said, "Can you make it for us?" I said, "Well, we don't, but let me see if I can help you." And I went to all these contract packagers and contract manufacturers all over Southern California area, and they all said, "How many millions of pieces do you want?" And these clients, they just wanted like 10,000 or 50,000. And all of the factories said, "Go away." And I realized again, here's a non-entrepreneurial old school industry that is built around very expensive, high-speed machines. And now, again, with this advent of the internet and e-commerce, the idea of being an entrepreneur was all of a sudden easier and cheaper. And so you would need a scaling facility that could do small production runs and scale people to big ones. And that really didn't exist. And so we launched a company to solve that need and that societal shift. And then as we started making their miniature products, we start making the large sizes, and this is food and beauty, personal care, liquids, powders, particulates, packets, stick packs, bottles, jars, cans, bags, kosher certified, organic certified, OTC for topicals. So we kind of are unique in the country in that we do a plethora of things. But what happened was they said, "Great, you're making my minis, now make my full sizes. You're doing my full line of products. Down the street, you do your own fulfillment for your own brand, both direct to consumer and wholesale. Can you do fulfillment for me too?" And so all of a sudden now we're in the fulfillment business. And that was another industry that predated e-commerce, where it was mostly pallets coming in and pallets going out. And now all of a sudden you're pick and packing individual items, having a lot more needs to communicate with your client. And so a lot of brands that were going into traditional fulfillment were getting frustrated based on the service level and even skill sets of these older 3PL, third party logistics fulfillment companies. And so we found success in just really treating these brands as if it was still our own, because it was the same staff doing our own stuff. And so that business kind of grew out of that. But again, based on a sort of, in that sense, an industrial need of what happened, out there in that industry, based on that shift of what was happening in e-commerce.
Right,
And I can
right.
keep going. Like
How,
the other ones we did had the same thing. All came out of, like, I have a TikTok marketing agency now that came out of partnering up with a team that came over from China, working with the executives to help really bring U.S. talent on there. We built a live selling studio in my warehouse, and we're working directly with the TikTok executives to support U.S. brands and even in import brands that their products get landed here in the US in my fulfillment center and all. So it all really ties together. I'm not going off and opening restaurants or anything, like that. And our other company's a food service distribution company. Another one, we partner with high profile celebrities and innovative consumer products. So we've basically built an infrastructure around consumer products brands. And now the idea is we can leverage that, into ownership in some of these consumer products brands.
right, right, Paul. Now, in terms of growth again, how do you manage these all businesses at the same time and are able to? What is the role of the team here, or you are managing all things, context switching all the time for your businesses, or do you manage? Do have you kept people who are managing them separately?
Good question. A lot of it is me doing something different every 5 minutes of the day, but which is actually exciting for me. But the real thing, which is classic business knowledge, and you learn more about this when you go from sort of textbook learning to doing it in practice, is having good people and good leadership, and leadership that can do things on their own. without having to be told what to do all the time, but actually knows how to have the good critical thinking skills, knows when to ask for help, knows when to get sign off on things, knows when they can just run with something. That is the key, really, to have these things kind of all, working together simultaneously. And the other part of it is creating systems that are self-reliant. They have their own backups. Like if someone's out, someone immediately knows to slide in and knows to do that role. And so creating the systems, which takes years to develop those systems, seamlessly within an organization, but really focusing on the system as well as the people, so that the system is like sort of a living, breathing thing, regardless of the people. So if a certain person is out, there's always coverage for it, and the system doesn't fall apart.
Right. And talking of focus, you just said focus. How are you able to focus when you have got so many places to look at the same time? You have
Uh,
to grow. You have to focus on one business. How do you do
I don't.
that?
So there's a lot of money being left on the table, a lot of opportunities being left on the table because of lack of focus. However, had we focused just on that e-commerce business, I'd be out of business because of Amazon. So really, that business has gone way down, while these others that really came out of it have risen up. And now a lot of these work together. Like I could have a customer in three of my businesses simultaneously. I could be making their product, fulfilling their product, and distributing. I could even have it a fourth time and also marketing it on TikTok. So in that sense, it all fits together in a weird way. Even though they're separate companies, it can have a synchronicity amongst them. But they're definitely, I wish I could clone myself, because there'd be a lot more opportunity if I could dive deeper on any one of these businesses, and or even have other people be able to come in. A lot of what I'm doing now going forward is a lot more partnerships, and working with partners. So a lot of the new businesses I'm doing are all with partners. So that way I can focus on sort of leveraging my infrastructure and what I do already into supporting what they want to do, but they're really driving the train. And that way, again, it gives more value to the infrastructure I have, and my time, and being able to use it more smartly.
Right, right. But what about marketing? How do again, it's the focus. One thing you follow, okay, this is what is needed. You know, you have also your hands into this creator economy also. So how do you put all the things in terms of the marketing part? It needs a
So
lot of fine tuning. You just can't do a TikTok video and just
yeah,
send it out. Every business needs different focus.
yeah. So in over the years, the 20 years I've been doing this, I would say it's almost every year the value proposition of where you should be spending your marketing time and dollars and effort and all that changes. Back when I started, when it was 5 cents a click on Google and a 99% email open rate, people clicked on banner ads and blogs were read, and it was the golden days. It was easy. Now, at this exact point in time, it's very, very, very difficult. Just before COVID, it was Facebook and Instagram advertising, and their entire businesses built off of the arbitrage of just throwing out some ads and seeing it working, putting more money. It works, and it keeps going, going, going until you hit a ceiling. And but in the meantime, you've got a nice business. But post COVID, given all the activity and competition of brick and mortar stores putting their ad dollars into Facebook and Instagram, and Apple allowing you to opt out of your data, that's caused the cost to acquire a customer to skyrocket. Which means if you have a lower ticket, lower dollar value item, or a lower margin, you can't really do that as an effective advertising tool or marketing tool. So right now, TikTok, ironically, part of the reason why I've partnered in an agency there, is one of the best value propositions, at least here in the United States. Because the algorithm of TikTok does a lot of the work for you. Is if you can create interesting and entertaining content, and the entertainment pieces keep pulling back from my days in film and TV, you've got to make something that people can be entertained by, not just marketed to. And I think modern marketing has moved from interruption marketing, where you're interrupted with a commercial or an ad in a magazine or something, to actually building that advertisement within the entertainment content itself. And YouTubers and folks like that have figured out how to do that seamlessly, where you can actually entertain somebody where you're at while you're actually really a commercial for your product. And that is revolutionary. And I think the future, a lot of marketing, where we're not going to be looking at advertising, we're going to be looking at entertainment that happens to be having a product advertised, and we might even want to spend just to support that person who's providing us that entertainment, to support who they are and what it is they're doing. And it becomes a completely different way to market a product. So I think right now, brands aligning themselves with talent who really, I have teenage kids, and you look at where their eyeballs are and where they get influenced to make decisions on products. And it's things like YouTube and TikTok. And so if you can get your product on there, or get it, with the people who bring the eyeballs in, that is the way you're going to be able to generate sales. So there's definitely a modern shift, even in the last year, that's happened and will still happen. Live selling, over 30% of all e-commerce in China is done with live selling.
Right.
Barely anything here in the United States, but TikTok is really trying to pioneer that aspect here in the United States, to be able to, have a whole new way of learning about product, buying product. But I'm still pushing, the folks at TikTok to say, we've got to do it though with an entertainment value, because consumers in the United States aren't like in China. They're already used to being sold to on these platforms. We aren't in the US. We're used to being entertained and informed. So we need to be going on these platforms and be entertained while we're being sold to with these products.
So that's the biggest marketing trend that you think is for the at least for the next year.
I think so. I think that's right around the corner, at least here in the United States. I don't know what the market is like in India. I know you don't have TikTok there, but
Right.
or you did for a while. But I think at least here, and I think it probably will end up a global phenomenon with live selling eventually. I don't know if it'll take a year, 2 years, 3 years, but I think it's definitely around the corner. And I definitely think globally, looking at where people's eyeballs are looking to learn about products. And right now, it's a lot of the social media channels and these creators that create content that people are watching. And so that's where you need to be with your product. I mean, that's the age-old marketing thing. You want your product to be where people's eyeballs are. And every business and industry is different. Sometimes you have a particular industry where eyeballs, you're a B2B product, or you're a very specialized thing in a particular industry. We'll figure out where the eyeballs are in your, for your product in your industry, and get there. Don't think you just need to be on social media because everybody is. Maybe your product isn't, it's a medical device or something. You don't need to be on social media for that. Everybody will tell you should be, but no, you should be where people are looking to, who are the people who buy that? Where are their eyeballs? Where do you need to be?
Right. Right. So TikTok is not here in India since 2020 because of government
Yeah.
decision at that point. But we are fine with what we have. I want to understand then. Were you scared? Now, do you think TikTok will stay in the US with the new administration coming in very
S-
soon?
I think Trump recently said he was keeping TikTok, I think a week or two ago. So it looks like it'll stay, but we'll see.
But we'll see. But how do you see this whole thing about, and I fully agree with you about the live selling and live shopping part. That is because this has trend has been developing for the last couple of years, but now it is there and coming on very strongly,
Yes. Yeah.
and those who understand it will understand it, obviously, and I totally agree with you. But in terms of the creator economy, how do you see this whole thing? About, you talk about entertainment and selling, so
Yeah.
those people who are not selling anything, how do they still continue to be a good part and profitable part of the creator economy? Now everything is going video. If you see Spotify's new
Yeah.
push into video, and direct head-on fight with YouTube, you see, and almost looks like Spotify is leaving behind audio here. So you've got TikTok, you have got Spotify, you have got YouTube, you've got many other platforms, and now Threads is gaining a lot of attention nowadays. Blue Sky is gaining a lot of attention. How
Yeah.
do you see this whole creator economy? As a creator, is it confusing times, or are these very good times for a creator?
Oh, I think for creators, it's actually a great time. And the ones that are, and most of them are true entrepreneurs, because it's, and the ones that are successful are generally successful because they have an innate understanding of human psychology, and then they figured out how to tap into something. And that's basically what you're looking for in marketing. So they figured out how to be a good marketer, even if it's just for entertainment content, and even if they can't articulate how and why they're able to do that. It's just an instinctive skill. And I think there was an interview with Mark Andreessen of Andreessen Horowitz recently, who said you're going to see a lot more consumer products brands being driven by creators versus kind of the major old school way of thinking. When we were younger, it was, you bought a brand and you stuck with that brand your entire life. Now there's a lot of people trying new things. Oh, let me try this brand or that brand. And creators, if they get behind a brand and actually own it and passionately, promote it, people are going to want to support that because they want to reward the entertainment value they're getting from that creator, which, I mean, blows a marketer's mind when you think about it. You're not having to be advertised and sold to. You actually have a consumer who wants to pay, not even necessarily for the merits of the product, but to actually just support the person pushing it, to them. And for these creators who may not be popular forever, if you can get behind a brand that you can, and this is why I like to do it with product innovation, where the creator is putting the eyeballs to a brand that would be popular in and of itself, but just doesn't have eyeballs on it. So now you have a brand that can actually be scalable, not just a standard basic product where you're only selling to your fan base. You're now using your fan base and your eyeball really to propel something, get attention on it so everybody can come in and buy it. So that I actually think is a success, path for creators in the creator economy, is having legacy beyond just sort of their immediate fame and the branding deals. I mean, they should still do those kinds of things that puts money in your pocket in a regular basis, but laying the foundation for legacy, income and building on something by being a part of a brand that has innovation. It's not just merch where you're selling logoed stuff with your name on it to your fan base, but actually a legitimate consumer product that can scale.
So you mean creators create products and then they sell or they tie up? Should a brand come to a creator or should a creator go out to a brand? Where is the money for creators in the coming days?
So in that it should be situations where creators look to be an equity partner in the business and don't, they can go to certain brands and say, pay me, the minimum guarantee in a percentage of sale, like the typical sort of branding deal that they can do for their, I'll call it day-to-day revenue. But to build something really long term, they should say, don't pay me anything up front. In fact, maybe they even invest money in it. And they own, half the company or some sizable piece of equity. And they partner with an operator like what we're doing to own, the brand together. And then that is the kind of, because they're busy being creative, they're busy, they don't actually want to sit and do the operations of a company and government paperwork and accounting and, planning and operate, like it's not what they want to do. It's not what they enjoy. It's not necessarily even what they're good at. So they focus on what they're good at. The operating partner can focus on what they're good at. And through that, you can actually have a successful, consumer products brand that can scale. And I don't know if that answered your question, but
Absolutely, absolutely. There is much to learn
oh,
from you about. Yes,
so the other part of your question was, should a brand go to the
right.
creator? And that is potentially a dangerous area because you never know what you're going to get. And you really have to assess, okay, they may have a lot of fans, a lot of followers, but who are those followers? You could be a good looking woman on Instagram with 8 million followers, but 95% of them are men looking at you because you're in a bikini all the time. Like, so you may not be able to sell any product, or if you are, it has to be a very specific product for that audience who will go beyond the fact that they're looking at you just for your pictures and are actually going to be influenced to buy a product. So you have to understand who the audience is. Would they buy a product from you? Would they buy this kind of product, from them? How much does that audience care about this, person? Like I would take somebody on YouTube who's a chef who has 1 million followers over that girl on Instagram who has 8 million followers, because the chef who's doing recipes and things, their fans are looking for them to tell them and give them ideas. And if they can bring a product to them, a food product or a spice or something, those fans are going to buy that because that's what they're looking for that content. So it's really understanding that formula and whether that creator is the right fit for what your brand is and what your product is. And is that creator doing it just for the paycheck? And then you have a certain type of relationship as to how you're working with them as a branding partner, or do they really want to be an entrepreneur and partner with you and be able to passionately get behind it? So that's, for a brand, there's a lot of navigation you have to do to figure that out to make sure it's a good win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. There is much to learn from you about all these things, Paul. And I'm sure a lot of people would like to connect with you, learn more from you, about you, can be a partner with you in whatever that you do, so many things that you do. So what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Probably the best way would be email is usually good. Paul at minimusbrands.biz is probably the best email. The Minimus Brands website kind of links to some of these other companies. LinkedIn is a good way on business stuff. I'm on LinkedIn at Paul Shrater, Shrater. And yeah, and we're actually working with some brands from India that are selling in the United States on our 3PL, fulfillment business. So we've got a lot of experience sort of bringing stuff in and helping sell it into retail or Amazon or direct to consumer and all that. So definitely would be great to work with more brands coming from India.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you.